Uh, I think we are live.
Yes, I
Here,
think
I
we
think
are.
we're
Good
live
morning, Dana.
now. Good morning. Hi, David.
Well, you look absolutely lovely.
Thank you. You too.
So, the topic we outlined for today was something about an ADU, wasn't it? An accessory dwelling unit, a little house behind a house in the backyard. We design lots of those for people. Didn't you have something in mind to talk about for those?
Yeah, there's a few things I wanted to talk about. So yeah, ADUs are really important. It's going to be an important thing to talk about, as well as some of the things that we're doing with our business coming up, and also some updates about my visa and the necessary things for the visa here. So let's go ahead and start with ADUs and talking about the the uh, the additional dwelling units, or sometimes they call them accessory dwelling units. So yeah, David's really familiar about all of that and the pros of having ADUs. Obviously, the pros being that you're able to house more people, say in your family, or let's say you're able to collect rent. Basically, what an ADU is an extra structure on your property, or a space that's in the property that you have existing that you transform into being a place for people to rent. So you would add, to make it an ADU, some type of kitchen or kitchenette, and its own bathroom with its own shower, and possibly maybe a laundry unit or whatever, so that you can, house an extra family member, or somebody else, collect rent, and so forth. And there's all
Mhm.
different types of ADUs. There's the attached ADU. There's the garage conversion ADU. I think that's called the Jadu, right?
The attached ADU, which is smaller, and these are California classifications. This wouldn't necessarily be what's happening in Chicago or other places in the country. In California, the state law standardized the entire process for it. And so the attached ADU, which has its own separate reference, is called a junior ADU, a JADU. And then there's a garage conversion, which, if it's attached, would be a junior ADU. If it's not attached, it would be classified as a regular ADU.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think the only cons that people see with ADUs are that maybe maybe they can be expensive sometimes depending on who you're going with, or that they're taking a long time to permit.
But
And
they pay for
usually,
themselves.
yes, of course, of
They
course.
pay for themselves because you rent them out. You can even do what's called a lot split. California state law allows you to do that if you have a very large yard with independent access on the back of it, with a street on the back of it, then you can have the lot divided and sell it even. But what most people want to do is they want to rent it out to people, and because there's a definite shortage of apartments. There's a shortage of houses. That this adds to that. And so I like to say what is definitely a true thing that's happening. We are solving the housing crisis one unit at a time.
Yes, exactly. And some other things that some people find a pro and some people find a con are that it densifies the city. Sometimes people like that because they like to have more life going on in the city. Other times people don't like that and they want their city very much more like urban sprawl. And
I don't think people want urban sprawl. They don't think that they want urban sprawl. No one thinks to themselves, I love urban sprawl. What they think to themselves is, I love having a detached garage in a huge yard. And that's what they go for. And then they purchase that in the context of urban sprawl. I don't think anybody loves urban sprawl.
well, so yeah, actually a lot of people do. A lot of people like the idea of
Well,
um
who? Who likes urban
very
sprawl?
people who like, little suburban villages that are not dense and love big yards and not a lot of
Right.
people.
you're repeating exactly what I said, is that people don't like urban sprawl. What they like is having a large yard and a detached house. And if that large yard and detached house were in the middle of a village, which is what, say, happens in Santa Monica, which is what happens in San Marino, which is what happens in up in the foothills around the San Gabriels, this is um, in an urban context, you can have that. You have that on the northwest side of Chicago in what's called Albany Park. And I think it's really important for people to understand this, is that you can have the amenities for what people think is only suburban. You can have that in an extremely urban context, and it works. And in fact, it works a lot better because very, very few people actually want to live in a place that is sprawl, because if they seek sprawl, that means you have to drive 15 minutes to get anywhere where you purchase something. Very few people actually want to live that way.
Some people like that when, let's say they live in Normandy, or they live in Hidden Valley, or in a place
More,
that.
that's Hidden Valley is rural, and that's different. Hidden Valley is rural. There are horse farms there. That's what you might call exurban. But also, you have to realize that more than 50% of the United States lives in suburban sprawl, and a lot less than 50% of the American population would ever want to live in suburban sprawl.
So can you just offer me the explanation between rural and urban sprawl?
Oh, geez. Rural is a place where that has to do with farms or the countryside. Urban sprawl is subdivisions. So there's an old joke that says if you get arrested for urinating from your front porch, you're in an urban setting. If you're embarrassed to urinate from your front porch, but you could, you're in a suburban setting. If you urinate from your front porch and nobody sees you, you're in a rural setting.
Oh, that's funny. Well,
But
all right. So no kids on this episode.
urban, suburban, rural has to do with, are you inside the city itself? That's urban. Are you outside the walls? That's what suburban means. It's suburbs, below the walls. So suburban means on the periphery of a city, which means by definition long commutes. Suburban means by definition long commutes, which nobody enjoys. And
Okay,
then,
so okay, I think I get what you're saying.
yeah,
So you're basically saying that the difference between rural and urban and suburban really is that suburban is in like this still within sort of the city. It's not within the downtown city, which would be the urban. It's the suburban, which is next to the city. But if it's urban
that's
sprawl, it's
That's very much correct. That suburban is in what's called what urban planners call the metropolitan area.
okay. I see. And so then rural would be not suburban. Rural can be where there are homes and where there are lots, but it's
Yeah,
more. Would you consider something that's more in the hills and in the mountain a little bit urban sprawl where there's houses
that
that
has
are.
nothing to do with it. Geography has nothing to do with it. You can have suburban sprawl in mountains and hills. You can have cities in mountains and hills, and you can have suburbs in mountains and hills.
Well,
What rural, suburban, and urban have to do is your proximity to the city center. It has to do with how long your commute is or whether you commute at all. And it has to do with the economic base. The economic base of rural is usually agriculture. The economic base of urban is all the things in cities, which is industrial, which is financial, which is the service economy.
so what would
And
you
this,
go ahead?
go ahead.
What would you consider, like, for instance, in California, there are a lot of villages like Old Agora that they have a house, and then leave your house and drive maybe 2 or 3 minutes and then get to the next house. And your house is somewhere along in between a long strip within a lot of forest and trees and everything, is that considered urban sprawl?
Yes, in the sense that that is exurban incursion into an otherwise rural area.
Okay, so it's in between urban, it's in between.
Urban sprawl is not always suburbs. Urban sprawl is the spread of city dwellings. Urban sprawl is the spread of dwellings. So the San Fernando Valley, known as, the Valley, that is, a lot of that is urban, and that's urban sprawl. You have closely packed little houses, you have condos, you have apartments, you have strip malls and gas stations all over the place. And it sprawls out through the valley, kind of evenly and in a very pukey way that makes you feel like your life force is being drained through the bottom of your feet. So,
Ooh, painful.
yes, that's what I feel like when I'm there.
Yeah. Well,
I'm glad I
I
don't
totally get
I'm
that.
glad I don't live there.
I get that because the difference, I guess, between, let's say, Westlake Village, where there's like more space in between homes, and the Valley, where there's less space in between homes, is that both within Westlake Village and the Valley, it will take you the same amount of time to walk from your home or where you live to go get something to eat. And actually, it might take even longer in the Valley to walk to get some place to eat than it would take. And usually, when you're walking to get some place to eat in the Valley, you're going to end up first,
Crossing
you'll
a
pass
horrible
the
highway.
yeah, passing a highway, and passing a 7-Eleven, passing a liquor store, passing a cigar shop, passing many stuff, like many places that
There aren't
are.
cigar shops in the valley. There are smoke shops.
That's what I mean, smoke shops. Yeah, that's what I meant to
Yeah.
say. Yeah,
Yeah,
and so.
they don't have these there. They have things
Oh,
made out of glass that people put what Michael Knowles calls the Haitian oregano inside of. Haitian oregano, Mexican lettuce, the marijuana.
oh, okay, okay. I was like, what are you talking about? I thought you were talking about other stuff, and anyway, I'm slow. So anyway, yeah, that's really interesting. But anyways,
Oh,
back to the whole point of ADUs is that some
say
people,
good night, Gracie.
yeah, my whole point is that
You're
some
not slow.
people, should I talk like Ben Shapiro?
You're not slow, I said. If you were slow, maybe you would. I know I just made a bad George Burns joke. So you're talking about you're slow, and I said, well, say good night, Gracie.
What if I talk like Ben Shapiro? David,
Is is your wife a doctor?
my wife. I don't have a wife. I'm not a lesbian.
But if I were, she'd totally be a doctor. Okay, folks?
I'd be a leftist with blue hair, and I'd be rampaging on the streets, and nobody would know what the point is and why I'm even alive and why I'm here. And all my life would be purposed is around wokeism and woke ideology, and I would be prancing around in the streets, possibly stripping naked, and who knows what would happen to me after
There you go.
that. Killing babies and all of that.
Oh, that's not good. That's not even good to talk about.
I know, I'm sorry. I'm just going over the top. I don't dislike anybody.
You,
I just like being
yeah, you and Roseanne going over the top.
Roseanne. Like
She
Rose.
complains about how she goes over the top all the time. She's like, I'm a comedian. That's what we do.
Okay.
What?
Well, I don't want to think about Roseanne when and
You
anyway.
don't want to, oh,
Roseanne,
Roseanne's not,
she's cool.
she's not
Roseanne.
horrible.
She's not horrible. No, she's great. I just did, I didn't know I reminded you of Roseanne. Like, I don't know.
You don't remind me of Roseanne. It's that both of you say inappropriate things sometimes when you go too far.
I can concur with that.
And
Yeah.
that's okay. You can own your okayness.
Well, anyway, so back to ADUs as we got lost somewhere
Mhm.
in urban
You were
sprawl,
talking about
which is normal.
urban sprawl, and you're talking about the difference between urban, suburban, and rural. And I think we've made that distinction clear.
Yeah. And it's funny that I said that I was getting lost after urban sprawl because that's what happens in urban sprawl is you end up getting lost, you don't end up
That's
not
right.
knowing where you are, and you end up getting a little bit on the crazy side. So
That's
here we are.
correct. And then because all the streets are what they call their stiff lollipop and curved lollipop.
What?
You've never heard of that?
No.
That was a big argument in the 70s and the 60s. Is your subdivision going to be stiff lollipop or curved lollipop? So when they do the street layout, this is an urban planning thing. When they do the street layout and it's been decided that they're doing subdivisions. So you have the major big highway, and then you have an exit off the highway, and then you have a main streets, and then the streets branch off and then turn, and then you have cul-de-sacs, and the streets end in cul-de-sacs. Why? Because cul-de-sacs sold very well. When you
Yeah.
told when you told high anxiety mothers who were crashing from Valium that they would live in a cul-de-sac, then they felt more relaxed and they henpecked their husbands to get the house on the whole cul-de-sac, for God's sake. Because
Yeah,
they were saying things like, no child of mine is getting run over. And then that's why they wanted to buy the cul-de-sac houses.
well,
And
I don't blame them.
it's very important. You don't want your children getting run over. But
Well,
cul-de-sacs are one of the worst ways to do it.
I just are, you know what? I'm just a typical woman. I'm just a typical woman. I love cul-de-sacs.
Oh. Well, if you talk, but you do realize that what you just complained about getting lost in suburbs, that's the consequence of having cul-de-sacs.
Nope. Nope. Nope.
No?
Because
What do
when
you think it
no,
is?
because when you see a cul-de-sac, you remember exactly what that cul-de-sac is. When you see a cul-de-sac, you will never forget where you are.
What happens when
Guaranteed.
they all look the same? What happens when they all look the same and the houses are all the same color?
That can be an issue. So, for instance, like in Westlake Village, they have a lot of cul-de-sacs, but they're nice houses, nice cul-de-sacs, and you're never really lost more than 5 minutes. And then when you do get lost, you end up in a beautiful grassy park. So
Mhm.
cul-de-sacs can be done really well.
Yes,
Um,
almost anything can be done really well. Yes.
And the thing that people the reason that I like cul-de-sacs is that especially in the United States where the automobile is so heavily um put on a pedestal where the automobile like you can't do anything without a car. So basically everybody's got a car,
That's that's
everybody's
that
got
that's not true. Okay, that's extreme exaggerations about the United States, and it's not true. And I know that you remember us speaking to the very nice employee who was also an artist in his spare time, who worked at the grocery store in Pasadena, who commuted to Pasadena by the train, and he didn't own a car. And
that is extremely rare.
the guy who applied to this job here,
Yeah.
that I paid to work for a few weeks, he was 16, so he was a young high school guy. And I asked him, well, where do you see yourself in 5 years? All those silly HR questions. And he said, well, I'd love to have an apartment in downtown LA so that I don't need to spend money on a car. I'd rather take women out for sushi than own a car. That's what
Well,
this
let's
guy
look at
said to me. That's what this 16-year-old guy said to me. So that's the future. The future is less car ownership. And people don't need
well,
a car necessarily. So it's important to remember that.
Okay, so the future, when you talk about the future, are you talking about the future that will be or the future that should be? Because yeah, the future that should be, people should rely
You
on
don't know.
public
You don't know
transportation.
the future that will be. The
Well,
future,
exactly.
you don't know the future that will be, and the future that will be is chosen by people who act thinking about what will be, what should be.
But here's the thing, David, is that I would say 90% of the people that I've ever met in California would not ever live without a car. Like I would say 99% of people in California would never live without a car. And especially from all those
Times are
people,
changing. Times are
mm,
changing. Yes, they are. Times are changing. Dana, how many statistics do I need to cite for you? How many facts do I need to cite for you to have the response be, well, people I've talked to have opinions? Now,
okay,
downtown in Los Angeles, last summer, there were 3 subway stations that opened. 3 of them.
that's lovely.
3 subway stations that
How many
opened.
police, how many police are enforcing the entrance of that subway station?
About 3 at a time, about 3 per station. And when I walked past them, they said hello to me. And they were wearing yellow striped vests and they had badges on their sleeves.
Okay, and so my
I
question
know where you're
is,
going with that rhetoric, and the answer was the laws being enforced. It's a good thing.
okay, yeah, it is, but my point is that the future that will be might not be the future that you think that you're hoping that it's going to be. The future that you're hoping that it's going to be is that no homeless people are going to be on the trains, and that nobody's going to need a car because we're going to have more better public transportation. Like yeah, it sounds amazing in concept.
We have good transportation now, and people use it now, and they're only going
No,
to use it.
no, no.
Dana,
Sorry.
I was on the train the other day. For you to sit there in France and say that, quote, nobody takes the train in Los Angeles, I have to say that you literally don't know what you're talking about. I was on the train the other day and it was full of people.
Okay,
So it's a very positive situation.
okay, you're on the train full of people. Okay. You're on the train full of people. Of course, you're on the train full of people. Of course, every train is going to be full of
And
people.
I do
Okay,
own a car. I'm going to be driving to Rancho Cucamonga to deliver printed plans to a client of ours to Alberta this afternoon.
so ask your client and ask Alberta how often they take the train.
Alberta has told me she has no train station near her. Some people do
Well,
and some people don't. It's not a black
there,
or white thing. Do you
there
know
you
what
go. That
Alberta,
goes along with
Dana,
my
do you know what
argument.
Alberta has told me? What
What?
Alberta has told me, there are 2 things I'm going to say. One is that Alberta has told me that she wishes so much that they had never pulled up the train tracks in Rancho Cucamonga. And
Well, they
secondly,
have.
and secondly, there is a really huge, do you know the news about Bright Line West? It's very positive news. You might not have known the news that they're building a high speed 220 mile an hour, or maybe it's 120, no, it's 120 miles an hour, 120 mile an hour express train track between Las Vegas and Los Angeles. And the big terminal station is in Rancho Cucamonga.
That sounds wonderful, David. Now, how often are you going to be going to Las Vegas?
I won't be, but thousands and thousands of people will be, and it'll be a very good thing.
Okay, that sounds wonderful, but we're not talking right now about the commute from Los Angeles to Las Vegas. We're talking about people being able to use the trains, the transit system, okay, within the with like right now. Right now, I'm
Sure,
telling
we
you
can
that
talk about the K line. We can talk about the K line, also known as the Pink Line, which has been open and going through Inglewood, which I've also ridden, and which also gets good ridership. It doesn't get great ridership as compared to the E line. The E line, which is the pale blue line, which goes to Santa Monica, that's the busiest on the entire Los Angeles system, is the train that
so
goes from downtown to Santa Monica. The Pink Line is going to continue to the airport, and they're building that out. And so they're continuing to build this.
okay, they're continuing to build it, but they haven't built it yet. Okay, number one. And number two,
No, Dana, you're having a lot of black and white thinking here. They have built
no.
3/4 of it. You said they haven't built it yet. They've built 3/4 of this
Okay,
line and it's open.
you're not understanding. My whole point was to say that cul-de-sacs were useful in California because too many people use cars, and your argument is that that's not for long, and my argument is you don't know that.
My argument is that cul-de-sacs have been damaging to the urban environment. They've been damaging to the psychology of women and children. They've been
No,
damaging to traffic patterns. I'm not the
no,
only
they're
person who said
wonderful.
this.
They're great.
Well,
They're great for
you and I
forming.
can agree. You and I can agree to disagree on cul-de-sacs.
Well,
It's a good,
because
good
again,
French word. Good French word, cul-de-sac.
okay, well, David, again, your experience on trains is going to be different, okay, because you're a man. My experience on a train is much different. As a woman, it's scary, especially if you're alone, okay? Especially in Los Angeles. You can't deny to me and tell me that there aren't just as many homeless people on the train as non-homeless people just openly smoking drugs on the train and
I've
sleeping
never,
on the train.
okay. There are more non-homeless than homeless on the trains. There are.
Probably maybe by
Okay.
like, you know,
So you'll change
three-fourths
your story there
non-homeless and
now.
one.
As soon as I've said it, then you change your story.
I'm sorry, but in France here, homeless people really don't take the train. Maybe they do
Well,
if they
sure.
have the money, okay? But if they don't have the money in Los Angeles, they don't pay for the train. They
I'm
hop
sure
over
that's a
the.
distinct improvement. I'm sure that's a distinct improvement. And you know what's been happening in the recent years and months is that Los Angeles County has increased its enforcement on the trains, which means there are more people checking tickets, which is the main thing that keeps homeless people off of it. There's an increase of camera surveillance, and the libertarians can whine and complain about cameras, but increasing camera surveillance also keeps criminals and vagrants off of the trains. And it also helps keep women with high anxiety to feel a little bit better. And the anxiety that women might have about trains, why are you disagreeing with this? The anxiety that women might have about trains is well founded because there is genuine risk. But what do we do about that? Do we simply say that no, none of this makes any sense, or do you actually solve the problem? I
Well,
say we
you
should
don't
solve the
solve the
problem.
problem. You don't. Okay, here's the problem. Here's the thing.
Yeah.
If there's a plague going on and there's no public transportation, you don't say, okay, the best thing to do right now as a priority is to fix the public transportation so that people with the plague and people who don't have the plague can
Well,
ride the
don't
train to
invent
work.
impossible hypotheticals because there isn't a plague.
I'm sorry, a lot of people, homeless people in California have a lot of stuff going on. So let's besides mental and physical stuff. Okay. So yeah,
Spiritual stuff, then. Besides mental and physical, the only option is spiritual. I would agree.
a lot of spiritual stuff too. Yeah. But a lot of the time, yeah, they do have physical stuff that is contagious. So
This
let's
is an
not get into that.
important. All
Let,
right.
let's not get into that. My point is that priority when it comes to people having a safe and effective transportation, okay,
Should be in the hands
is
of Dr. Fauci.
no,
Okay.
stop. The solution to that, the priority to that, okay, our priority in terms of people getting, especially women getting from one location to another is not by focusing first on public transportation, because you can't focus first on public transportation when there is a crazy uprising of homelessness in Los
I
Angeles.
never said focus first on public transportation. I never said
Yeah,
focus
no,
first.
you are saying you are okay. So you're saying that
So what you're
cul-de-sacs
saying
are bad.
is,
What you're saying is
this is a very good Kathy Newman impersonation.
okay. So cul-de-sacs are very wonderful because there are too many cars on the road. Okay, so yeah, while we have too many cars on the road, cul-de-sacs are
Well,
wonderful. I don't
we're,
see why you think that cul-de-sacs are a horrible thing for urbanism
okay,
when
let me
do you
explain this
want
to you then.
streets?
Do
when
you
do
want me to
streets
do you
when do
want me to
streets
tell
terminate?
you? Do you want
When
me
do
to tell
streets
you
ever
why
terminate?
do you want me to tell you why I and pretty much a consensus of new urban planning designers consider cul-de-sacs to be bad? It's not just my opinion.
Please, please, please.
Right.
What makes the termination of a street with houses on it a horrible thing? Do you want an endless grid where all the houses just continue on a straight path, or on a curvy path, or on a thing?
That's what
What's
Chicago is, and it's better than cul-de-sacs. Now,
Why is it better than a cul-de-sac? I mean, aren't there any little valleys in Europe that just have a little street that just ends right there where there's little shops and a little thing? I mean,
sometimes it
little
does.
pockets, and it's
Sometimes it does, but
wonderful.
it happens very, very rarely. And
But
American
it's
cul-de-sacs,
beautiful.
and it's illegal to put shops in American cul-de-sacs. I think your idea to put shops in American cul-de-sacs is a very good idea, and we should do it. That would make cul-de-sacs
Yeah.
better.
Well, yeah. So then your answer is not that cul-de-sacs are ruining urbanism.
I
Your
didn't give that
argument.
answer. I was responding to an additional point that you made. Cul-de-sacs do ruin urbanism, but would you like to hear the point instead of adding additional information? What do you want to
Sure.
do?
Tell me what is so bad about a cul-de-sac.
Sure. So the main problem with the cul-de-sac and the residential cul-de-sac, the exclusionary zoning, detached, single-family home cul-de-sac, the main problem with how they are done in subdivisions, it's a toxic combination between the cul-de-sac and the subdivision, where they interact with each other and make it very bad. Now, you have cul-de-sacs without subdivisions in Europe, which are okay. In the United States, the cul-de-sacs which are in subdivisions, you get dozens of these things all over the place. It does make the street pattern confusing. It does increase the time that you need to get from one place to the other. It creates a situation where you can look on the map and see a path where if you were able to walk, but you can't because there are fences and there are other people's private property, but if you could walk from point A to point B on the map, it might take you 5 minutes, but it would take you 15 minutes to go out of the cul-de-sac to the main street, all the way around to this other place and back in. And that's a challenge, and that's a bad thing. The other bad thing is that when you create this density of cul-de-sacs, you blitz the landscape, you cover the landscape with the urban sprawl, and you have this repeat of the sameness over and over again, and it is stultifying, and it's bad for people's mental health, and it is bad for women's mental health, and it's bad for children's mental health. Now, the benefit of the cul-de-sac is that there is no through traffic. There's no through traffic, so the kids can run. This is always the excuse. So the kids can run around and chase and play in the street without worrying that they're going to get run over by a car. That's important. That is a genuine benefit. But the trade-offs are very stark. The other trade-off is that it creates a traffic bottleneck, because what happens when you have the cul-de-sacs? The cul-de-sacs increase the number of cars on the road because they are not and cannot effectively be served by public transportation, because public transportation serves more people when it deals with nodal points along a line. Why are you disagreeing with that? That is how public transportation works. Go ahead.
No, because I lived in a cul-de-sac. Okay, I lived right next to a cul-de-sac, which of course all the kids who lived on the cul-de-sac were much closer than any of the kids that weren't on the cul-de-sac. All the kids that were in the cul-de-sac immediately became like lifetime family, and anybody who wasn't on the cul-de-sac, wasn't really part of that. And so it creates a sense of community with cul-de-sacs. And here's another thing is all the
None of
points
that is a contradiction of what I said.
well, here's the thing, all the points that you made about a cul-de-sac do not are not fundamental are not a fundamental part of what a cul-de-sac is. You cannot say
So let's
that a
focus.
cul-de-sac.
What I'm arguing against is not to ban cul-de-sacs. What I'm arguing against is to not have cul-de-sacs the way they are articulated in subdivisions in the United States, with the
Okay,
repetition of cul-de-sacs throughout residential-only neighborhoods adjacent to a freeway, where you create a horrible traffic bottleneck. That's
so
another thing they do. They create a
so here
horrible car traffic bottleneck. It's a trade-off.
Well, here's why it makes sense to not have any commercial inside a cul-de-sac is because you do not have a flow of traffic going through that cul-de-sac. You don't
That's
have cars
correct.
going to and from the cul-de-sac.
Yeah.
The whole point of a cul-de-sac is that you don't want a flow of traffic. So when it comes to a cul-de-sac, the commercial spaces are always on the outside of the cul-de-sac, which makes sense. Okay.
Right.
Secondly, sure, it does make sense to have cul-de-sacs, but your argument to say that people have to walk outside of the cul-de-sac to go to the next cul-de-sac.
They
Okay,
never
so
have to, but you're preventing people from being able to. And because you're preventing people from being able to, you're limiting your urban typology and you're limiting the content of what makes sense in it.
okay, so but that's not a fundamental of a cul-de-sac is to limit people from being able to walk easily from one cul-de-sac to another to
It
the
is
other.
when they're concatenated. My objection is not to the existence of a cul-de-sac. My objection is to the grouping of a dozen cul-de-sacs in one subdivision.
My village had dozens of cul-de-sacs in one village, and you could walk into one cul-de-sac and then go into inside of the cul-de-sac, and then inside the cul-de-sac is a park that leads you to all the other cul-de-sacs. So you could walk through a path that lead you to all the other cul-de-sacs that lead you to the school, that
Most,
lead you
Dana,
to the
most,
commercial spaces.
most cul-de-sacs don't do that.
Well,
Westlake
here's my
Village,
whole point.
Westlake
Here's my whole
Village
point.
Westlake Village has a lot of urban improvements over most of the rest of the country. And
So
you're very fortunate to have grown up there.
So what you need to make a distinction then is to not categorize and to put cul-de-sacs into a box saying that this is what a cul-de-sac is and this is why a cul-de-sac is not good. Okay, that is wrong. Okay, that is wrong because if you do that, you are limiting the idea that a cul-de-sac doesn't have to be the whole the
I
only
agree with
part
you.
fundamental
I agree with you,
cul-de-sac.
and I agree with you, and I don't think I was doing that. I wanted to become more
No, you are.
specific.
No, you are. You labeled all the reasons why a cul-de-sac is not good. You
I
forgot
was very
to.
specific before I started that I said my problem is with the repetition of the cul-de-sac and the putting of it with a cul-de-sac and a subdivision. I said cul-de-sac and subdivision right before. Now,
You don't need a lot of
you're bringing a
cul-de-sac
lot of new
places do
information.
not have
Huh?
repetitions of many cul-de-sacs. A lot of
You just
places that have cul-de-sacs have maybe 3 or 4 cul-de-sacs in an entire
And
strip.
I would agree with you that that is a distinct improvement. I'd agree with you that that's a very big improvement. And I wouldn't mind seeing that.
So what you're saying, what
There's
your
a lot of
argument.
common ground here.
So then what your argument is not with the cul-de-sac itself.
How it's
Okay.
implemented,
Yeah, it's how it's
which I've been
implemented.
trying
So
to
then,
tell you.
no, you've been trying to bash cul-de-sacs themselves and labeling cul-de-sacs as having XYZ as a fundamental part of
Okay,
cul-de-sacs.
I reject your premise of you trying to invent a rivalry of me hating cul-de-sacs.
You said that you hated cul-de-sacs. You said that cul-de-sacs have ruined urbanism.
Hashtag not all cul-de-sacs. So maybe,
Hashtag
so
hashtag only the cul-de-sacs that you've experienced. Okay, so
no, I've
same thing with.
experienced good ones. There are good ones in Italy. There are good ones in Chicago.
Well, there you go. So not all cul-de-sacs. So then don't complain about cul-de-sacs. Complain about
No,
the
okay. I will complain
complain.
about the ones that are bad because the world is not black and white. There's been a lot of black and white thinking that I've been hearing here, and it's not a black and white situation.
Well, if it's not a black and white situation, I don't know why you have to bash on cul-de-sacs because the same can be true. The same
Right.
can be true
I
for
bash on the bad. I bash on the bad cul-de-sacs because it's not black and white.
well, yeah, but we weren't having a debate on bad cul-de-sacs. Yeah, there can be bad places that totally suck that have no cul-de-sacs. Should we start going on about that too, about why those streets suck?
Yes, we should go on about every street that sucks. We should go on about why it sucks and not repeat it. And we
Good.
should improve things. That's the whole point.
Okay, so then so then yeah, we will talk about other streets and why they suck. And yeah, we will talk about that too. But for now, we're talking about ADUs. Okay, so my whole point is that people who dislike ADUs don't want to see on, for instance, their beautiful lot that they have, the beautiful view that they have of the mountains, all of a sudden gets obstructed by somebody's ADU that pops up.
Yeah. We talked a lot about this last week.
Yeah, well, that's, it's a big problem. And I empathize with those people who have that problem. But let me tell you, if you're going to design an ADU, you can't just think about yourself. You got to think about your neighbors. You got to think about what's beautiful. And it doesn't take a lot of money to do that.
I agree with that very much.
Working with Living Process LLC, David and I, working with us all the time, we are going to focus on ways that are the most profit forward projects that are the most beautiful for both you and the village, for both you and the context. Make sure that your neighbors share that love of your ADU that you do. And sometimes their dislike of the ADU can be simply, I don't want more people inside my village. And you can't really argue with those people because
you can't please all the people all the time.
Yeah, exactly. And another thing is, to all those people who dislike ADUs because they don't want more people moving into their village, listen up. Sorry to break the news to you, but villages grow, villages expand, and they will expand forever. And so if you're looking for a village that is not yet expanded, move, leave, go to another village, because it's not going to happen that your village is going to stay perfectly cookie cutter the exact way that you want it to be. And this actually,
I think you need to go Beckley Teppy.
This brings me to
or
Hidden
at least
Valley.
Move to Florida.
Yeah, this brings me to Hidden Valley. So Hidden Valley is this beautiful, beautiful little, like, big giant lot of land next to Thousand Oaks.
Which
and
is west of Los Angeles, everyone.
West of Los Angeles in California. And this place is basically, the homes are roughly like 20 million, super expensive. So I was arguing on Nextdoor, on the Nextdoor app, with some people, asking them about what they would like to see in Hidden Valley. Some of the objects on my list, or the items on my list, were like, more farms, a beautiful park, a church, beautiful, some beautiful things for the city, for the community. And they got, many people were happy about it, but there were some people that said, leave it alone, don't touch it, it's perfect, stay away. And
yes, this is called NIMBYism. NIMBY. 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 And NIMBY was his name. Oh.
Yeah, and so here's my argument to those people while I pour myself my last bit of coffee here. Just a minute.
Oh.
Let me just ramp up my thoughts about these people while I pour my coffee. Okay, so
it's a very lovely cup.
Oh, well, thank you. It's my beautiful Versailles teacup that my mom brought me.
Oh.
See, this is a beautiful use of gold. Anyway, we're gonna not talk about that now. So to the people in Hidden Valley who, or any upscale village of rich bourgeoisie kind of like home area, residential, who want their little village to stay exactly the way it is, I got news for you. If you do not support community things coming into your village, like farms, like horse ranches, things of that nature, then what you're gonna get is a shopping mall. What you're gonna get is billionaires buying big giant plots of land and putting a big giant home that you're never allowed to see. And they'll probably put big giant trees in front so you're not even, or a big giant wall so that you can't even see over their wall. And you'll
You
never
might
see.
even get Gavin Newsom bootstrapping. Gavin Newsom and State Senator Wiener might even bootstrap Project Roomkey and dump a bunch of legally accepted migrants, 5 people to a house.
Yeah, and the thing is
That's
that
also possible.
yeah, and since Hidden Valley doesn't have, it's not a registered city, and it doesn't have any sort of city council. It doesn't really have any sort of like laws or rules pertaining to that. Somebody could just,
that means it's unincorporated, and that means
yeah,
that it's under the jurisdiction of the county.
yeah, exactly. That means that somebody could just walk in and say, you know what, I'm going to rezone my house to be a big old gas station. Okay. And instead
Does
of,
it mean that?
I don't
How does
know.
rezoning work? How does in what county is that? Ventura County?
Uh, yeah, because it's Thousand Oaks.
How does rezoning work in Ventura County? I'm
I
pretty
don't
sure you
know.
can't just say magic gas station.
Okay, what I mean is that somebody can just build something that you didn't like and that you're not even allowed to be a part of. So, and you're not allowed to vote on it because it's not an incorporated city. So there is no voting for that.
There are
But
some incorporated cities where you can't vote on it either.
well, here's the thing though. Would you vote out to have a beautiful horse ranch that is public because you don't want because you don't want anybody there, and then because you voted to have nobody there, it's now an open piece of land for some jerk to open it up with his $1 billion mansion that
A
you're not
lot of
even
these
allowed to go near?
hypotheticals are impossible to answer accurately because there are too many variables in the future that are uncertain.
Well, what my point is that development is going to be inevitable. So you
That's
gotta
correct.
development is inedible.
That's also correct. I definitely can't eat it.
Yeah, development is inevitable. So you're either going to have something that is beneficial for the community, or you're going to have something that's beneficial for only one person, or a one family or such like that. So instead of, dissing beautiful development of things that respect the rural aspect of where you are, understand that you should want and should encourage people to develop on those lands that respect the rural aspect of that land
Well,
and respect.
this is often called gentle density, which I agree with. This is something that Frank Lloyd Wright would often talk about, saying that do not ban building on hills, build on the hills in a way that completes the hills, that makes the hills look beautiful.
Yeah.
And gentle density is something, maybe when you come here, it would have been very nice. Do you remember that dinner that we had with some people in Culver City in November? The wife of one of these guys is on the zoning board of Van Nuys, of the little community that's in the valley. And so she is extremely aware of the challenges with cul-de-sacs and the challenges with subdivisions and the challenges with suburban problems, and that they're trying to add what this guy at least described as the strategy of gentle density. And you talked about how it would have been so nice for the guys to get together and talk, and then he would have had his wife there with the kids and you would have hung out with them. Do you remember that moment in that evening?
I think so. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so these are the same guys that actually hung out with us and Alex Petkiss, that guy. So
Mm.
it would be nice if you can kind of come and hang out with them again when you're here again in November. But there are people who are working. There are people who are actually part of the city government who are working as best they can to really address and solve these issues. And I would love for you to have conversations with those people and to reach out and to find them.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I love that. I love yeah, I love that. I love the development of parks. I love the development of farms, especially like food forests. Food forests is like a hot thing right now where you're not just building a farm or you're not just building a forest, but you're essentially building like a park with a park where you can eat food off the trees. And that's really, really wonderful and important. You know how much I
Yeah.
love that idea of planting more food for us peoples and animals. So yeah, I'm all for that. We're actually working on a few proposals for some farms right now, and we're also working on a few proposals for one food forest, and we're working on a large residential complex of two large residential complexes full of just residential urbanism. And I think, David, there might be a cul-de-sac in one of those.
A cul-de-sac is good. 12 is bad.
Well, 12 is bad if they're too close together, okay, and they're not connected by walkways that connect at the peak of them, or
Connecting them makes things better. Yes. And
yeah, and
this is what we're doing. This is what we're doing with the LSRA project in Riverside, is that we have, again, it's a park that works its way through the middle of the subdivision so that you have footpaths that can connect one part of the subdivision to the other. And we have a park and we also have an alley. The city people asked to add an alley, and I was very happy that they did. And so was Andrew, who is the urban planning architect.
yeah,
That's what we're waiting on for South Side. We just wrapped the design feedback for North Side, which is that the regional planning, which passed the first round. You, Faiz, and myself just this last week sent things to them that Andrew was happy to see. That got that taken care of.
wonderful. I love both of those plots, and I'm really, really excited for the further development of the design of those. Yeah, and really exciting stuff, you guys. I'm so glad that you're here with us talking about all these things and listening to David and I kvetch about architecture. We love kvetching.
Yes, we do.
That's why I like you.
Mm. The world would be much less exciting if you did not have sharply formulated opinions, Ms. Ladd.
Yeah, oh my gosh, I would be so bored if you just agreed with everything I said and then I asked you, did you understand anything I said? And you just said, yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah, yeah, I
yeah.
totally did, Dana. I totally did, Dana. Whoa, you're like so smart. I like that too.
Don't ever
How
be like that.
how did that experiment go just now?
Just
Yeah,
bothered me. Just
yes,
bothered me. Don't ever agree with me, David. Disagree with vengeance.
yes, there we go.
Disagree with an iron fist.
Iron Fist. Topaz. Topaz Fist. Because topaz is harder than iron. Rule with the topaz fist.
You know things. I'm like, when we talk, I feel so stupid. It's so funny because when I talk to like most people, I feel super smart. Maybe they're just humoring me and telling me I'm super smart, but you
It's
know,
very possible, especially in a nation filled with as many gracious people as France.
no, actually, well, yeah, maybe. Yeah,
Are you
everybody's
going to
pretty
say the French
modest.
are not gracious? How
No,
dare
no,
you?
no, no. I'm saying that I usually don't feel as smart as French people. That's what I mean. Is that when I'm in the U.S., I feel pretty smart talk,
No,
but it's probably because I haven't really talked to anybody here. I'm kind of shy.
that's okay.
I don't
Just
really talk
stop
to many people.
thinking. Just stop thinking about relative smartness, and that'll be okay.
No, I know, but what I mean is that people usually tell me like, "Oh, you're so smart, you know about this or whatever." But you know what? It could honestly, it could be that I'm just stupid and they're just like trying to humor me. Where in the United States, they instead of humoring you and being like, "Wow, you're so smart," they're just kind of like, "Oh, you don't have money? Well, then you're stupid no matter what."
Yeah, that's a very unfortunate attitude.
Like, oh, you're not popular and you don't have a lot of money. Well, then anything you say is stupid.
That comes from people, that comes from people who want to extract money and attention and fame from their social relationships. So that's what they're constantly seeking. So if you don't have that they can suck off of you, they're not interested.
Yeah. Anyway, I don't know. I'm having thoughts. So why don't we end with that? Because I need some time to contemplate.
Sure. So I think, yes, it's now, this is a good duration that we have had. By the way,
Ooh,
what was the, you thought of something?
yes, this is really important, you guys. So, I have, when it comes to my
Seriously.
visa, seriously, this is really important, you guys. So with the visa that I have here in France, I have to go back to the United States to get my entrepreneur visa. So now I'm applying for the new visa, the entrepreneur visa, and I'm also applying for university. So part of integrating here, it's really important that I translate my birth certificate and I translate my transcripts or, just important documents into French. And so to do that, you can't just do it yourself. You have to go to a professional. Okay. You have to go to a professional to have you have to go to a professional to have them translate your documents into English. I'm sorry. Oh, into French. I'm sorry. But so I'm going to be doing that. I'm going to add in the description a list of I'm going to add in the comment section. I'm going to add a list of places where they have somebody to translate in the Ile-de-France area, uh, where to translate your documents from English to French because it needs to be legitimate by a professional and stamped and signed, whatever. So in the link in the description in the comments, I'm going to add some of those contacts, whatnot, and there you go. And then please, if you guys want to like and subscribe, as always, right, David? Yes.
Absolutely. Always click like and subscribe, comment below, and then you can really tell us what you think.
Yeah, tell us what you think. Tell us if you think that I'm being a being a like stereotypical woman with my cul-de-sacs argument, and if David's being
Stereotypical.
stereotypical woman about my idea about cul-de-sacs, okay, who loves cul-de-sacs, and then tell us if you think that David's being a kvetch about his dislike of cul-de-sacs.
Or do you think I'm mansplaining? Tell me if you think I'm mansplaining cul-de-sacs.
Yeah, yeah, you guys, tell us if you think that David is mansplaining about how cool it is and easy it is to take the public transportation system in California. Tell us if you're mansplaining, David.
Because that's not what I would call mansplaining. I mean my definition for mansplaining is, so forth. There's the, you really need to see the Am I Racist movie. Here's a free plug for Matt Walsh. That was a paraphrase of a Matt Walsh joke because he apologizes for mansplaining to a race grifter lady, and then in the middle of his apology, he puts mansplaining into the apology itself. So it's a very,
That's funny.
very
Well,
astutely done film.
well, Matt Walsh is amazing. He's amazing. I mean, he's an example of how you take a guy who never went to university, never went to college, but made so much gosh darn
He
success
didn't?
in his life.
He never
What?
went to a university?
No.
Shapiro went to Harvard and Michael Knowles went to Yale, but Matt Walsh did not go to any of those? Wow. Why? Are you giggling at Ben like, oh, hello, Ben Shapiro?
Oh, yeah, Ben's okay too.
Oh, but you like Michael Knowles. You're sending
No,
flirt energy to Michael Knowles.
no.
And then sweet little Elisa said, Mark, who's that lady in France who's flirting with you in her videos?
No, I think they're really great. And you're mine, so there you go. They're all taken, guys. They're all taken. But you're also taken,
I am
everyone.
taken. Yes.
David's taken. Don't touch him because he's mine. Right?
Yes. You know, Michael Knowles never wears socks.
Michael Knowles never wears Wait, he
Somehow,
doesn't?
somehow his feet are formulated to where that's never an issue.
I have to argue with that and say mine too. I don't get smelly, sweaty feet, so I don't
That's
really
because you're
have
a
that.
lady.
No, no, no. I've smelled some really nasty, smelly,
We
sweaty.
shouldn't end on this note.
Well, let's dive into your pipe before we go. What are you smoking today?
Today, it is called Early Morning Pipe, which is
Hmm.
appropriate for this hour, even though it's not entirely early. But yes, it's Early Morning Pipe, which is what they call a light English blend, which has a little bit of campfiriness to it because of the Latakia. It's a Latakia and Virginia blend, originally made by Dunhill, which got messed up by the European Union. But then thankfully, it's the Irish to the rescue. It was bought by Peterson.
Jordan Peterson? No, Peterson Pipes.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, I was gonna
You would
say, I'm
only
like,
you would only hope that he's put his name out there for pipes, eh?
oh, that would be spectacular, eh?
Yes.
If anybody loves Jordan Peterson, by the way, check out our website, livingprocess.net/fine art, and you will see my beautiful portrait that I painted of Jordan Peterson, and it it's for sale. It's for sale, but we'll see.
Where is
We'll
that
see.
portrait right now?
It's kept safe at my father's home.
Very good.
Yes, we'll see. If somebody really wants it, then I will sell it to you.
You
But
should show it. You should show that painting to the galleries that you're going to visit in France before you leave in November. And then you can bring that to France for them to show in the gallery if they want to acquire that painting.
yes, I will be taking pictures of my paintings and also business cards of the Living Process business cards, and I will be taking those to galleries to just to spread the word, spread the name, spread the love.
Yep. So
All right.
that's what we'll end on. And hopefully next week we'll talk about many other architectural things, but hopefully also your paintings. And we'll talk about the galleries that you've visited.
Yeah, okay, cool. So next week we'll talk about art and also with the visa stuff, we'll talk about how long it takes for certain visa stuff, like getting documents translated, and we'll also talk about what we're doing in the upcoming days and our progress. So everybody,
Absolutely.
thank you so much. Have a really
Thank
great
you.
day and see you guys next